Another day, another session here at the Bellagio. Today I will be playing 1-3, probably, and maybe 2-5.
Nope!
Let's see how it goes. Let's hop right into the action.
So I put my name on both lists, but I got a seat in the 1-3 game first, and a little spoiler, that was the seat I still sit on around 8 hours later. So no 2-5 in this episode for me. There's a $300 max buy-in in this game, and that's what I'm in for, and in one of the first hands we get Ace King of Clubs in the big blind. The +1 player makes it 10, the cutoff calls, the button folds, and now the small blind 3-bets. He 3-bets to 40. If he were heads up, I think I could call here sometimes, playing in position with Ace King suited, but with the 2 players behind me, I don't want to invite them into the pot and play it multi-way here, and my opponent in the small blind only has around $200 effective, so I have no problem to get it in here with my hand. So I 4-bet to 110. The +1 and cutoff get out of the way immediately, but as expected, the small blind jams for 195 effective. Of course, I snap call here and we see a run out. The flop comes pretty good. Ace 4 deuce with 1 club. The turn brings the 8 of spades, bringing in a backdoor flush draw, and the river is a 10. I show my ace king and my opponent is a little frustrated. He shows us pocket kings. Right in the first hand we suck out on our opponent and we scoop in a very nice pot at the beginning, off to a very good start. This time we started the session way earlier than the last time, at around 7:50 PM, and 30 minutes into the session I already noticed the table is pretty tight again and I felt like to mix it up here already. Here in the next hand I'm in the cutoff with 7-4 of diamonds. We see a limp from the low jack before me and it folds to me. I raise it up to 12. The button and the low jack decide to call. We see a good flop for our hand. The dealer rolls over 5-4 deuce with 2 spades and 1 diamond. The low jack checks to me and I c-bet here for 17 and only he decides to call. The button gets out of the way. We see the 10 of diamonds on the turn, bringing in our backdoor flush draw, and that's a card I want to keep betting on. The low jack checks to me again and I size up to 35 again, which seems too much for my opponent. He lets it go and we take it down here with third pair. 2-4-2 in this session so far. Nice start. Let's keep it going like this. After around 50 minutes, a new player to my right joins the table. He's way looser compared to the other players at the table. He likes to straddle and I'm down for action this evening. In this hand I'm in the +1 seat and my right neighbor puts out the $6 straddle. I double straddle to 12 and let's see what happens. The big blind calls and all other opponents decide to fold, but at least the straddler puts in $6 more and we see a flop. The flop comes ace 6-5 rainbow. The big blind and the straddler check to me, and since nobody raised pre-flop, I think nobody has a strong ace here. So I decide to start betting. I bet for the amount you see on the video and both of my opponents decide to fold and we take down this pot relatively uncontested. It's not the last straddle pot you will see in this vlog, so stay tuned for more double straddle pots here at the Bellagio, which definitely have some more action. On to the next one. Just a few minutes later, I pick up pocket 4s here in the small blind. It folds to the cutoff who decides to limp, and the slightly more aggressive player on the button raises it up to 15. I decide just to call here because we are not more than 100 big blinds deep, and I just set mine here, and that gives the cutoff a very good price who decides to call as well. We see a relatively good flop of 7-7-3. Me and the cutoff decide to check to the button player who decides to bet. He bets 20. This board is way too good to fold pocket 4s here, so I stick in the call and the cutoff gets out of the way. So we are just heads up now to the turn and it brings in the deuce of spades. This card brings in the backdoor flush draw, but nothing too exciting here. I decide to check again to my opponent and this time he checks back. The river brings in the queen of clubs. This card is definitely better for my opponent's range than for mine. And I think my opponent knows that. And besides this fact, I don't think it makes too much sense to bet for thin value here with my pocket 4s. I want to induce a bluff from my opponent, so I check to him. And he don't let us down. He bets for 35. We stick to our plan and call the 35 and let's see if he's bluffing or not. He shows us ace 10 offsuit. So he was bluffing, and we are good here with our pocket fours, and my opponent to the left, which I teach some German at the table, is at least a little impressed.
Wow. That's some real poker right there.
Crazy call.
Yeah, that was a really strong call.
39 minutes.
The next hand is a very interesting one where we double straddle again. So obviously we are in the +1 position and it folds to the button who decides just to call here. The big blind calls as well, but now the under the gun player has enough. He raises this pot up to 45. I look down at 6-5 of diamonds. In my opinion, an okay hand to call here in position, and that's what I do, and that invites the button player as well, and the big blind gets out of the way. So we see a flop 3 raise of 10, 10, 9 with 2 clubs and 1 diamond. Under the gun checks, I decide to check, and the button checks as well. We see another 9, the 9 of diamonds on the turn. There are 2 flush draws on board right now, but the board is double paired now, and now my opponent from the under the gun position starts to bet here. He bets 50 this time. Pretty small bet in my opinion, and I go into the tank for a little bit. I don't think my opponent has too many 10s or 9s in his range. He most likely has some overcards, maybe at best an overpair here, and $50 here into this pot isn't a strong bet at all I think, and we already saw this opponent bluffing here with overcards like ace-10, and even with a slightly stronger holding he should be afraid of the double paired board. So after a small time I stick with my gut here and put in the raise. I raise this pot up to 125. In hindsight, maybe a little small here, but on the other side it may look even stronger and maybe look like I really want to get value with my mate full house here. The button player gets out of the way pretty quickly, but my opponent from the under the gun position has other ideas. He thinks nope, and puts the rest of his stack in the middle for only $57 total more. I sit here with 6 high and a flush draw, but the board is double paired. This price is so ridiculous for me, but I can't call here. So in the end I fold my hand face up, and my opponent, for me shockingly, turns his hand over and shows us ace queen offsuit. He absolutely crushed our soul here in this one and scoops in this very nice pot. But at least the table go crazy on this hand, and let's see their real-time reaction, which breaks my heart a little bit.
I was just bluffing.
Really?
Oh!
Really? Wow.
He didn't even look at the flop.
That was good though.
Yeah, I think you're good.
He was good, yeah. I said.
He's like, you know what, we might be chopping even.
My German friend is like playing like crazy.
Like I said, the table is hot and crazy now, all of us having fun, having a good time, and the next hand is no exception. The dealer distributes the card to the players, and while this happens, one card of the middle position player exposes and it's an ace. But she decides to keep the card and everyone seems to be fine with it. Then she decides to limp into the pot. I look down at ace king of diamonds and it's pretty sure I'm way ahead of her. So I raise here, I make it 15 to go. It folds to the big blind, who is the definition of an old man coffee player. He is so tight that I'm already afraid he's into the pot as well. After he called, middle position player calls as well, and we see a flop 3 ways. The flop comes ace 10 9 with 1 diamond. They both check to me and I definitely bet here. I c-bet for 35. The big blind, who is first to act now, calls the 35, which is kinda concerning because he knows the middle position player has an ace. He knows I know that, and I still c-bet this flop, so he has to be very strong here as well. At best he is on a straight draw with hands like queen jack or something like that, but in future streets we have to be very careful now, and the middle position player calls as well. So we still go 3 ways to a turn and it brings in a 7 of diamonds. So we have a flush draw to our top pair, top kicker now, but this hand gets even more weird. After the big blind checks, the middle position player goes all in for her remaining stack of $115. I have to go into the tank for a little bit. The fact that she knows that I know that she has an ace is kinda concerning, and she most likely hit to pair now. So we are probably not good here at the time, but we have the nut flush draw as well. On the other side, the big blind, who is the old man coffee player, called as well on the flop, so he should be very strong as I said as well. And I don't think I'm getting the correct price to draw to a diamond or to a king, which maybe gives us the best hand. But while I'm thinking, it's getting even more crazy because she starts talking to me and says something like she got there, she got 2 pair now, and I should believe her, and I really do, because we are good at the table to each other. We had some good conversations, had some drinks, so I really think she got 2 pair on the flop or maybe on the turn now. And after like 2 minutes of tanking, I fold my hand. The big blind now snap calls her and they see a run out. The river brings the 8 of hearts, so we would break completely here. The big blind shows pocket 9s, so he was good there all the way, and the middle position player, she shows ace 7. In fact, she got there on the turn with 2 pair and beat us. I think we made a good fold here on the turn and got away with it. Anyway, let's go on to the next one. Let's go. Just 5 minutes later, we pick up pocket aces on the button. The hijack raises to 10 and it folds to me, and I definitely put in the 3-bet here. I make it 30 to go. It folds back to the hijack, who is the only caller here, and we see a flop heads up of queen, queen, 10 with 2 clubs. He checks to me, and on this board I don't think I have to c-bet too much here, so I downbet to 20 with my overpair. The hijack is pretty short, and after some time he decides to rips all in here for his remaining stack of 138 total. Another ugly spot for us. I go into the tank for a little bit, but after some time I come to the conclusion I can't fold here with my overpair. If my opponent has the queen or maybe pocket 10s, so be it. But because there is a flush draw on board as well, so I think he can do that with hands that contains a flush draw or maybe king jack. Unfortunately we have the ace of clubs, but I don't want to be too nitty and reactivate the nit alert here, so I stick in the call and we see a run out. The turn brings the 7 of clubs, not really good for us, and the river brings the jack of diamonds. It doesn't matter at all because my opponent shows us pocket 10s and we lose this one. So after we were up like $300 at the beginning of the session, we were down 100 now, and after that hand I rebuy for another 100 and let's see if we can turn things around again. Only a couple minutes later, we get dealt ace 5 of hearts on the button. One player limps before the cutoff makes it 13. Ace 5 of hearts is a good hand to mix in some 3-bets as a semi-bluff, and that's what I do in this situation here. I 3-bet to 35. The limper gets out of the way and the cutoff decides to call, so we go heads up in position to an above average flop of ace 6 deuce with 2 hearts. Surprisingly, the cutoff donk leads into me, but only for 15. That seems like a weak blocker bet to me. I guess she wants to know where she's at. Maybe she has an ace and has me beat now, but we have a lot of equity, so I decide to raise immediately. I raise this pot up to 55. After a small time of consideration, she decides to call, and I'm pretty sure she has an ace here as well, and so far has us beat most likely here. We go to a turn and the dealer rewards us with a beautiful king of hearts. So we have the nuts right now, and as expected, the cutoff now checks to me. Since I'm pretty sure she has an ace here, I don't want to bet too big here, keep her into the pot, and that's the reason why I only bet 55 again. To my surprise, the cutoff now raises me to 120. Okay, I'll take it. She doesn't have too much chips left behind, so I put her all in and she quickly calls. We see another ace on the river, which is a little frightening because she could have a full house now, but I turn over my hand and we are good. She shows us ace 10 offsuit with the 10 of hearts, but that's not good in this one. We scoop in this nice pot. Let's continue like this. We are carded for about 45 minutes and then we pick up king 9 of hearts in the big blind. The +1 player makes it 10, the button calls, and I decide to complete here in the big blind and we see a flop 3 ways. The dealer rolls over a very nice looking flop of 8-6-3 all hearts. So we flop the second nuts here and the +1 player bets. He pushes $15 into the pot. The button folds and I decide to play it a little tricky here. Just call on the flop, planning on check raising the turn, and yeah, that's what I do. I stick in $15 as well and we see the queen of diamonds on the turn. As planned, I check to my opponent and luckily for us, he keeps betting, this time for 45. I stick to my plan and raise this pot up to 110. Not so much time goes by and he decides to call. So I think my opponent could have a hand that contains the ace of hearts, maybe a lower flush, which would be very great, but let's see a river. The river is the Queen of Hearts. That's the worst card in the deck for me. It pairs the board and there are 4 hearts on the board right now. Ugh, I'm first to act and I'm really not sure what to do here. My opponent only has around $130–140 left. Most likely he has us beat now with the ace of hearts or maybe a full house now, but on the other hand maybe he has a lower flush which he can't fold, and I don't want to check to this hands which most likely will check back now. But as I said, I'm really not sure what to do here and I'm really interested in you guys now. Please let me know in the comments how you would play this hand, especially here on the river. After like 1 minute I decide to go all in for 135 effective and we get the very bad news because my opponent snap calls us. I show my hand and my opponent shows us pocket aces with the ace of hearts. Unfortunate run out. He scoops in this massive pot and after that hand we rebuy for another $200. So we are in the game for 600 total now. What a roller coaster session so far. Almost 90 minutes go by where it's going back and forth with my chip stack. I win some, I lose some, but to be honest, I got a little tilted after we lost that big pot. Every time when I'm under the gun, I put on the $6 straddle and so in this hand. The +1 player calls and now the middle position player raised to 25. The low jack behind him calls and I defend my straddle and so the +1 player calls as well. So we see a flop 4 ways. It's a pretty good one for our hand. The dealer rolls over 10, 9, deuce, rainbow. I check, +1 checks, the middle position player checks, but now the low jack, who is the short stack at the table, jams for a round pot size bet. He has $117 left in his stack. I'm next to act here and with my open-ended straight draw and my tilt level at almost max, I definitely put in my money here. I rejam for around $310 effective, but my opponents behind me decide to fold, so we see a run out, no more action here. The dealer gives us immediate help in form of the 7 of diamonds on the turn and we see the ace of diamonds on the river. I show my hand and of course we are good, but my opponent in the low jack has a somewhat surprising hand. He shows us ace 6 of clubs. I'll take that and let's go on to the next one. It's exactly midnight when we pick up ace 10 of clubs. No worries, I will expose the hand after the flop. There's a straddle to 6 and there are 2 callers before it folds to me and I raise to 30. Only 2 of the 4 players left to act decide to call and we see a flop 3 ways. The flop comes king queen 7 with 1 club. To my surprise, the under the gun player donk leads for 35 into me. The player between us decides to fold and with my gut shot and the possible backdoor flush draw, I decide to peel here at least once and we see the 10 of spades on the turn. Unfortunately not the improvement I was looking for and even worse, my opponent now jams his remaining stack of $125. There's not much I can do, so I fold and we go on to the next one. In this one I'm under the gun again and I put on the $6 straddle. There are 4 callers before me and I look down at pocket 10s. I definitely put in the raise here, I make it plus $30 to go. That seems almost a little too much, but there is at least 1 caller and we see a flop heads up of 7-7 deuce with 2 hearts. I'm first to act and I c-bet for 35 and my opponent folds. We scoop in the small nice pot and unfortunately for me and for you guys, something happened that never happened before to me. I forgot my charger and my phone died, so there was no possibility anymore for me to film my hands and yeah, I'm very sorry for that. I played for almost 5 more hours and I have a little session update for you guys. So yeah guys, that was one of my longest sessions I ever played. I played for almost 9 hours. It was really fun to play at the Bellagio, to be in Vegas. I will be in Vegas again in June this year, so if you like my Vegas vlogs, stay tuned for more Vegas action. I will be there for 9 more days. I'm really looking forward to this. But for this session, I was in the game for $600 and after 9 hours of play, I cashed out for exactly $600. It's my first time to have an exactly break-even session, but I ordered some drinks, I had some food, so all in all, it wasn't that break-even. A little positive, yeah. And if you liked my video or my videos in general, please leave a like under the video, subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one. Goodbye.